Game 6, Western Conference Finals. San Antonio Spurs versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's talk about it. So, I'm coming to you after the absolute BTA we witnessed by the Spurs to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Game 6 just took place a couple hours ago, and man, is there a lot to talk about for sure. This game took place in San Antonio. A couple of things I want to get out the way early on. Jay Williams, J Dub, as you may know him, came back today from his hamstring injury he suffered earlier throughout the series. I think he was gone the last two games. Came back today, last minute decision. AJ Mitchell still out of the game. So Jay Williams came back. He was not in the starting lineup though. Jared McCain kept his spot, and Jay Williams checked in about halfway through the first quarter, and didn't really help much. Maybe he came back a little too early. Not sure. So this game was ref by crew chief Zach Sarba, James Williams, aka Gucci Ref, and Tyler Ford. So the refing this game was pretty fair, honestly. I thought it wasn't too many egregious calls on either side. Whatever the Spurs got, you kind of felt the OKC got a similar whistle in general. Even though there's been everyone's losing their fucking mind over the refing throughout the entire series, throughout the playoffs in general. I feel like there's been a lot of scrutiny behind refing this playoffs, and some of it, it's neither here or there. You could say, I guess people are always gonna complain about the refs. That's just what the reality of basketball is, and sports in general. People are always gonna complain about the whistle because it's never seemed like it's a fair thing. But I thought this game was done officiated very very well on both ends of the floor, offensively, defensively, OKC and the Spurs. So with that being said, let's move on to the actual gameplay of what happened here. And man, so it was just God. The Spurs came out ready from that last game. So game 5, SGA having a best game of the series so far, scoring over 30 points. He was at the line for I think 16 of 17 free throw attempts, which is absolutely fucking nuts. And yeah, so first quarter, Spurs came in hot. Julian Champagny opens the game up with a three. And then after that, it was just full momentum on all ends, defense and offense. Everything was going down for the Spurs. Every shot they took was basically a guarantee to drop. Wemby came out hot. He scored two back-to-back threes. And in between that, he had a block on Jared McCain driving through the lane. And man, OKC just looked like they weren't ready for it. And the Spurs were just the exact opposite of that. They were ready for the entire thing. A lot of the players just they got a lot of good open looks, and the shots were dropping. And even though OKC had a strong defense, it didn't really matter. Whatever the Spurs wanted, they got. It seemed like tonight. Wemby was absolutely phenomenal. He scored I think 13 points in the first quarter. A couple of them were threes. I think early on he had his first field goals were three threes. So yeah, no, just absolute masterclass by the Spurs defensively and offensively. I want to highlight a couple of things I noticed in the first quarter that really opened up the game. One of them being Devin Vassell. He was just absolutely phenomenal. Even though his points per game this series have been a little bit diminished, this game he scored 12 points, 4 of 7 field goal attempts, all those being threes. He literally shot 7 threes, hit 4 of them. Equaling a 57.1% for this game. But it was everything else he did. Even though he only scored 12 points, it was a lot of the other things he was able to accomplish. Defensively, he was absolutely a monster. Like any assignment he got, he was there and he was giving it his all, whether it be Chet, Shea, Caruso, Cason Wallace, who were also, the last two were the ones who probably performed the best on the OKC roster this game, because the MVP and a lot of the others, the all NBA talent on the team was really diminished by today's play. So about midway through the first quarter, the Spurs kind of hit a slump, and OKC went a bit on a run here. They're going 1-7 at the 5-minute mark. But then you had Devin Vassell hit back-to-back threes to sort of get them out of that little bit of a cold stretch they were going through, and he brought you exactly what you wanted this team to give you from the previous games that just wasn't there. The energy, the life, not scoring wise, but in every other aspect, doing the dirty work, getting back on defense, just everything you would want your players to give you besides your stars. Because Wimby, you know what you're gonna get out of an MVP caliber player. It's really about everyone else on the margins. What are you gonna get from the supporting cast? And Devin Vassell brought that, so he had those back-to-back threes. And then I remember one play in specific that really just showed the effort aspect of things. It was on, I think it was a steal from the Oklahoma City Thunder where Shea is coming driving straight down the basket. It's just 2-on-1 with Vassell being the only one back, and Caruso coming following behind slowly with Shea. So Shea drives, um, Vassell gets the block, and then after that, Caruso comes to try and get a tip in, and Vassell is able to contest the shot as well, and then bring the ball back, leading to a three from Dylan Harper, if I remember correctly. Another guy I wanted to appreciate for a second here was Luke Cornett and his efforts defensively on the game. In this first quarter, I noticed he was just doing a great job of boxing out and just getting everyone away from the basket to help the team, like get those rebounds and get those second looks. With Isaiah Hartenstein, he did a great job early in the first quarter. He only scored about, I think it was, let me look here at the stats. He had 3 points the entire game. But again, expected from the guy who's not supposed to give you these crazy amount of shots. He only played 13 minutes, but every time he was on the court, you could really feel his impact on the defensive end, and just again getting those boards and getting those second looks for the team. Always, allow them to get this crazy stretch of shooting that the Spurs went on. I'm pretty sure they hit like a record amount of threes in the quarter. This is like the most they had since like the play-by-play era. A couple of the lowlights, Jay William, as J Dub, as he's known. J Dub checking into the game for the first time around the 4 minute mark, and man, did he look like he had a hamstring injury. Like it looks, you could tell the guy is not feeling right. Just by his overall demeanor and his speed on the game, he was just going so slow the entire time. It's knocking that rust off. It was just, this is not the series to do that or the place, the setting. Now I know it's you have a player of his caliber and level, an All NBA All Star. And he's a competitor. He wants to go out here and he wants to play, but it was pretty evident that he was just not up to that level. He's not ready to come back. It seems like it was a bit rushed, but again, looking at the politics side of basketball, the guy wants to come back and wants to play. You have a chance to push for the finals here, eliminate the Spurs. I understand why he came back. Now, was it a good idea? I don't think so. Also, this OKC does need the offensive push because AJ Mitchell being out, Shea not really performing to the MVP level we expect him to be playing at, and just all these other guys not hitting their shots. You need someone like Jalen Williams to come in here and really affect the game on that end, especially ball handler wise, because the Spurs are hawking these guys, man. Like anytime Shea gets the ball, they are guarding him from end to end. Now, I didn't send a lot of double teams, which is good because you don't want to send double teams on Shea, considering the OKC knows how to move the ball pretty well. Now, once things opened up in the second quarter, once again Spurs leading the entire time. This is where things got a little bit better for like the OKC's offense. Caruso was really starting to turn up, and so was Wallace. Wallace was honestly the star of the show for Oklahoma City. He was great defensively, great offensively, hitting clutch threes. Getting a good amount of steals. Chet did pretty well too. Cause all things considered, when it's Chet against Wemby, we know how that father son relationship goes. But no, he did really well on the boards. I think he led the entire game with the boards. Let me take a double look here. Now I want to take a moment to focus on Chet here. Chet had not a great game, considering the father son relationship with Wimby that he has. But he did pretty well on the boards here. I think he led the entire game with the boards at 11. 7 of them being defensive rebounds, the other 5 being offensive. 4, sorry, being offensive rebounds. He did a good job boxing out and grabbing those boards, giving the OKC second chance looks. They just couldn't hit their shots. Even though he got the boards back, it seems like they did better with the second chance shots. For OKC, again, the shots weren't falling. No one was being able to hit, especially with the defense on the Spurs end, hawking them the entire time. Chet only had 10 points, which, we're not going to harp on the fact that it's not really an acceptable thing for your third All-NBA player to be only scoring 10 points in the game. But when the other guy being Wembanyama, like what do you expect Chet to really do in this situation? He's just the guy's just better, when the guy on the other side is just better than you, and he's better than when the other person is better than you, when the other so when the individual you're going up against is better at stopping what you do best, then you're kind of ineffective in a game. But even then, he was able to produce something on the defensive end with the rebounds and the blocks. Now in the second quarter, OKC did start to get a little bit more momentum going. Like I said, as I mentioned earlier, Case and Wallace and Caruso hitting some clutch shots. I'm pretty sure they cut the lead down up to 5 at one point. But Dylan Harper, man, my Rutgers alumni here, he showed us what it means to be a star in this league. I mean, he just came into the NBA ready to go. He started going absolutely nuts, hitting clutch threes, scoring wise, playmaking wise, even defensively. Like he got a lot of times he was, had to switch on to SGA, guarding him from literally full court all the way down, just pressing the guy all the way through and really being able to, disrupt him in his shots. Obviously, SGA being who he is going to hit some of these shots. You're going to have to sit there and you're going to live with it. That's just what happens when you go against someone who's the MVP of the league. But with that being said, he was just great on both ends. Now, as the quarter started coming to a close, once again, OKC started to get their feet going under them. SGA hit some good shots, and the Spurs, in typical Spurs fashion, don't know how to close a quarter out because they just get a little too excited with what's going on, and then you start throwing up some pretty, crazy shots. Now at halftime, some of the adjustments I saw both teams can make, especially the Oklahoma City Thunder, considering they were still down. But they had cut the deficit from 60 to 53. So, 7-point game very easily could just tip in their favor. But the adjustments I saw the Spurs can make, I wanted Wemby to be more aggressive at the basket. It seemed like he was settling for a lot of shots, considering that Chet wasn't on the floor sometimes, or just whenever he would get to the top of the key, you could see that, some of the driving lanes would be cut off by the OKC's defense, and he would just be like, you know what? I'm ready here. Fuck it. Let me just chuck up a three. And with that being said, the shots they weren't great. Now, given a lot of the shots were falling for the Spurs, you could see that the possession was just, it almost felt wasted in a way when the ball movement just wasn't going. Sometimes one player would grab the ball, they would look around, see, there wasn't anything really that they felt comfortable doing, so they just throw it up. Now, while it was working against OKC, and considering there was a 7-point deficit now between the two teams, you really had to get a better idea of what you wanted to do and game plan a little bit better for that sort of situation, and making sure the shot selection and the ball movement was really, in your favor, considering this could easily turn at any point. Spoiler alert, it didn't, but you never know. Now on the OKC side of things, they just the shots weren't going down. It was just a bad threes. You could say it was bad luck. If you weren't named Case and Wallace, that shit was probably going out the gym. So the box number was Wallace being 3 of 4. The team at halftime was 3 of 15. That is just, damn, you're never going to get anywhere if that's going to continue being the case here. Shea needed to be a little bit more aggressive, considering he wasn't getting the calls he's used to. I'm pretty sure this game he only shot 3 free throw attempts compared to the 17 he shot last time, which, again, to be the MVP of the league and be who Shea we typically expect him to be, we know that getting those fouls is something that is a part of his game, and whether it be something you like to watch or not, it's what makes him effective, right? So not getting those calls, not getting to the line, not as effective as you usually are, or you expect the MVP to be, right? Another big thing, oh my God, one of the biggest things is just why are we giving Lou Dort these threes? It doesn't make sense. Game plan for the Spurs defensively was, if you see Lou Dort, just run the other fucking way, it seems like, because the dude was left open on so many shots. I think almost Probably all the threes he took, he was left open besides the ones in the fourth quarter. Bricking, it was either a brick or an air ball. Nothing was falling for the guy. He ended up the game with 1 of 9 from three, which is like, why is Lou Dort taking the most threes on your team? If that's how you want to play the game, then I guess you kind of deserve to lose because that's not what he's in the game for. That's not what we know Lou Dort to be. He's not Alex Caruso, who's someone who can just get hot on a random night and start hitting these crazy amount of threes. Not at least in the ways that we'd expect, especially considering his stats from earlier throughout the regular season. He's really been in a slump for hitting these threes. It hasn't been dropping the way it has like in previous years, the year they won the championship. So yeah, stop giving Lou Dort these fucking threes. Why are we doing that? It just doesn't make any sense. But alas, that's what they did, and the Spurs took advantage of that. Every time they saw him, he was left on an island, and rightfully so. So heading into the third quarter, quick spoiler: it ends 92 Spurs, 66 OKC. This is where shit hit the fan for the Thunder. Starting off, OKC challenges a call on Chet for Fox, who we're going to talk about a little bit later on in this video. Actually, we'll talk about him now because Fox made his first field goal of the game at the 7:38 mark in the third quarter. Offensively, he was just non-existent. He was not able to affect the game in any way offensively. Now, with that being said, I almost didn't even notice he wasn't really scoring well. Because of the fact that everyone else on the team was doing just that. Like his scoring wasn't really needed in this game, but when he had the ball, he did really well on the playmaking aspect of things and slowing down the Spurs offense when they got a little bit too much, like I mentioned earlier, of just that I got the ball, lanes are closed off. Let me just throw this shit up, just reel them in again, and sort of give them some sort of direction when they didn't have any. Defensively, he was doing a great job. He had 7 assists for the game. He only scored 5 points, which again, like it looks pretty bad on paper, but you almost didn't like you didn't need him. And that doesn't excuse the performance he gave us because it's a game 6 elimination game. You don't want your star point guard who's getting paid millions of fucking dollars on the payroll here to just be scoring 5 points. But yeah, it was almost like he wasn't needed. Like even though he wasn't able to carry the weight, everyone else on the roster was able to make up for his lack of performance and effort offensively. Let's talk about the moment everyone will probably remember for this game. The San Antonio Spurs go on a 20-0 run in the third quarter. There's a lot to say about what happened here, the collapse of OKC in this moment. These guys, I mean, they couldn't fucking throw a drop in the ocean at this point. Everything was just like for all the money on the fucking roster, they couldn't buy a bucket, right? Um, the Oklahoma City misses 15 field goal attempts. 15 scoreless for 7 minutes and 5 seconds in the third quarter. Shea's on the floor, Chet's on the floor, Caruso's on the floor, Wallace is on the floor, Williams, McCain. It didn't matter who was here. No one was going to score. No one could score. No one would score. Like you could just see how nervous everyone was to take the bucket and make it. Shea was nervous. You could really see it, honestly. Like a lot of shots he got, whenever he get contested, he might get a look for a second. Considering who Shea is, as much of a good look you can get being the MVP and getting the sort of coverage he gets. He was just passing up the ball, tucking it to someone else, and then throwing a shot they're not really comfortable with. Now, looking at the other side of things, the Spurs weren't like this world-beating team at that moment either in that third quarter. While OKC couldn't buy a bucket, this is what the Spurs needed. They needed that punch in the ass to really get them going and just make them feel like this is the moment. This is where legends are made. And they did just that. They gave us exactly what we would want from a team that we expect to win it all. Someone we talk about being a championship contender. This is what you want to see. And after this 20-0 run, the game was over there. Looking into the fourth quarter, maybe you watched the first 3 minutes, but the writing was on the wall. The OKC was not going to come back. The Spurs had absolutely delivered. A Game 6 performance you would expect from a team facing elimination against a world-beating champion. Game ends. Final score is 118 to 91. Series is tied 3-3. Game 7 back in Oklahoma on Saturday night. Now, the things I wanted to talk about were sort of what I saw for Game 7. Just a couple little early predictions here. And if I had to go on a dime pick who I'm going to take in Game 7, right now, after seeing what I saw, um, all things considered, going back to Oklahoma City, it's tough. It really is because both these teams, even though OKC was not able to, you know, deliver a win here, I'm gonna have to go with the Spurs. I think the Spurs are going to the NBA Finals. I think Oklahoma City will. It'll be a close game. I see the Spurs answering the call here. Game 6 of the NBA Western Conference Finals. What are your guys' thoughts? Drop them in the comments. Say what you want to say. Game 7. What do you guys think is going to happen? What are your thoughts? What are your predictions? Is Oklahoma City going to go back to the finals and face the Knicks, or are the Spurs going to start to elevate to that level? Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.